Good evening, welcome to our Wednesday night special edition of our Zera Shimshon class. Being that it is Hanukkah, we're making it a very special edition of our class. This evening's learning, and obviously all the brachot we made, is in the memory of Leilu Nishmat Masuda Bat Zohara Chazak Baruch Shokron, donated by her children, the Shokron family, her children, her daughter-in-law, her grandchildren, and all of us here. So may her memory be remembered always for the good, and may her neshama have an aliyah in the merit of all the brachot that we made and all of the Torah that we're going to learn, B'ezrat Hashem. The Zera Shimshon explains how he starts off by speaking about Chanukah before the Parasha, and he says, and he gives two reasons for it. First is, and this is a general concept about Chanukah that we all know or ought to know, and that is, we fulfill this mitzvah in order to, and the way that it's instituted, in order to publicize the miracle. We're going to speak more about what the miracle was and how the miracle was, but to publicize the miracle of Chanukah is something that we do, and that is most important by Chanukah. And that's the reason why he says, firstly, that he wants to start with learning about Chanukah, to publicize it. Very often people open up a book, open up a chapter, they read a little bit, they might not finish. So he says he wants to start off this week's parasha with something on Chanukah. So we will do the same. We will start off with something on Chanukah. The second reason he says is that Chanukah is also perfectly inserted in the time of the year that it falls out in, always around the parashiot. It's either Vayeshev or Miketz, normally it's during Miketz, always close to Yosef HaTzadik. He goes on to explain with different gematriot. If anyone has the Hebrew version, they could look with different gematriot, numerical value combinations, as well as different things according to Kabbalah, how Yosef and Chanukah are very, very connected. I think for now it would be beyond our scope to go and delve into that. We'll delve into things that I guess we can understand better. Let's just make a quick recap on what the story of Chanukah was, and how we were victorious and how we celebrate it. We know this to be over 2,000 years ago, and as we said, this was in the middle of the second temple. We had two temples, we know. The second temple, the second Bet HaMikdash, in the middle of the second Bet HaMikdash, there was this unfortunate uprising of the Greeks against the Jewish people, with prosecuting, chas v'shalom, a lot of horrible things. And we know that they forbade, out of everything, but they forbade three main things. And it's a very easy way to remember it, because of this acronym that's given to it. The acronym is given to it, the way where I saw it was by the Ben Ish Chai, Chamesh. Chamesh, Het, Mem, and Shin. Het for Hodesh. They forbade the Jewish people counting the Rosh Chodesh, counting the months, having a Jewish calendar. We'll explain why. What was that? Why was that so important? Mem for Milah, Brit Milah. They forbade circumcising any men, obviously. And Shin for Shabbat. These were the three that they studied. Now we have to understand, the Greeks were no dummies. They were the head of the world, because they obviously earned it. And they were philosophers, as we know. They were learned men. And they studied the Jewish religion and said, what are we going to attack? What are we going to forbid for them to observe in order to, chas v'shalom, to crush them? And they said these three. By the way, it's no coincidence that the acronym for these three is Chamesh, because what do the five refer to? The 5 books of Moses, Chamisha Chumshe Torah. So they were a little more politically correct than if we would compare this story to Haman, where the Zera Shimshon is going to soon. But if we compare this story and the way that the Greeks were acting towards the Jews compared to the way Haman and the Persians were acting towards the Jews, the Greeks learned from Purim. As we mentioned, to many of us this might be a shocker, that actually Purim happened before, over 200 years before, almost 300 years before Chanukah. So this is something we have to know. So the Greeks saw the Persians, they tried to get rid of the Jewish people, they failed. So they said, and they came and said, hey, maybe we're going to be a little more politically correct. So politically correct, we're not going to say they can't learn their book of worship, their book of laws, but just the three which are the core basis of them. Now let's go quickly and explain why these three are the basis of our Jewish religion. Let's start from the backwards forwards. Instead of starting from Chodesh, let's start from Shabbat. Shabbat, we all know, is one of the basic tenets of our Jewish faith. Shabbat is, as we say, Aleph Bet. One who wants to understand and to connect to God must observe Shabbat. Shabbat is our greatest gift, the Talmud tells us. Talmud tells us when God created the world, He saved the gift, and He saved that gift for the Jewish people so that they can have their Shabbat, their day of rest. And now, more than ever, we understand with the technology and the way that we work and the way we're always running and chasing our tails, how enjoyable Shabbat really is. If ever, now it is the easiest sale to ever sell to anybody coming close to God. Understanding that all, obviously, work, profit, electronics, anything which advances one in business is something so easy to accept upon nowadays, because if it would be not 7 days a week, so don't worry, you'll be doing it 6 days a week. Take one day off to relax, to recharge. So they knew this. They knew that it was one of the basic tenets of the Jewish people and that they had to attack it. So they went for Shabbat, obviously. Brit Milah, we know that in a physical way, is a covenant which binds the Jewish people to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they knew that if we're able to stop fathers and mothers from circumcising their boys, that they would be now slowly keeping the Jewish people away from their Creator. So now the big question is, where does Rosh Chodesh come into it? What would be so bad if the Jewish people did not count Rosh Chodesh, or I'll make it further, if there's no Rosh Chodesh, that means we're not going to know when each month starts, and then we're not going to know when the holidays are. And that was their intention. Their intention was to ruin them up weekly when it comes to their Shabbat, to ruin them in their physical bond and connection covenant with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Brit Milah, and to ruin them year-round, chas v'shalom. They won't know when Pesach is, they won't know when Rosh Hashanah is. They wanted to take everything, they wanted to take their identity away from them. They wanted to take their spiritual connection and relationship that they had with God, and they wanted to annihilate that. I will mention one last thing for the B'nai Ish Chai, then we're going to go to the Zera Shimshon. The B'nai Ish Chai says, it is no coincidence the days that, and the way that the holiday of Chanukah actually came out. Because every single time, there is no way that we do not fulfill Chanukah by disproving or proving to them, on the opposite, proving to them that we succeeded in maintaining those three most important observances that we hold. Because if Chanukah is 8 days, you have at least one Shabbat. And what's 8 days? 8 days is the day of the Brit Milah. And how about Rosh Chodesh? We have every year at least one, if not two, like this year, 2 days Rosh Chodesh, because it's by the end of the month. So we're proving to them, the B'nai Ish Chai says, that we're proving to the Greeks forevermore, we withstood your harsh and evil decree, and we are fulfilling all three of those aspects during this week. These 8 days we're alluding to it, which is a beautiful concept. The Zera Shimshon now says that the main victory was actually twofold. But it was beautiful in the way that it was hidden. It was hidden like, oh, the victory was because they found this jug of oil with the seal of the Kohen, which was an amazing miracle. No one denies that. However, the Zera Shimshon, amongst many other commentaries and sages, all say that the victory was twofold. Of course, it was masked, and it could have almost seen as if it was a fluke that they just won the war and then they found this jug of oil. But the jug of oil was one independent miracle, and the other miracle, which was the main miracle, was the spiritual salvation and victory that the Jewish people had by winning that war. Now again, winning that war was no simple win. It was a real victory. We're talking old, a small amount of people, untrained, basically unarmed, guerrilla warfare, amateurs versus state of the art, top in its field, people who've been working out, they're in the military, they're all sergeants, generals, they had their elephants equivalent to tanks, they had their jets, they had everything that they needed. What's the chances? So we'll soon see what the chances were. The chances were 0 to none, and they still won, and that was a very, very big miracle. And our commentaries, along with the Zera Shimshon, say that was the main miracle. Yes, we have the oil, but we have to realize what the main victory was, and that was the spiritual victory and salvation we have from us overriding those harsh and horrible decrees that they wanted for us. So they brought darkness to the world, and that's why the Zera Shimshon says that the Hashem went out of his way, so to say, to make this miracle with oil, because oil is, I will not say it's the only thing we can light with, but it's the greatest, it's the most advanced, best type of light that we can light with. If you compare it to wax or any other kerosene, any other type of smelling things, even if it's just wood, nothing burns the way a good oil with a wick, olive oil obviously, with a wick burns. And that's the way obviously it was burnt in the Beit HaMikdash. And God made a special miracle, the Zera Shimshon explains, with us finding the oil in order that forevermore we're always able to light with oil to illuminate any darkness that chas v'shalom, God forbid, will ever come our way. Now the Zera Shimshon now analyzes the victory of Purim versus the victory of Chanukah and the way we celebrate it. What happens Chanukah time? Well, Chanukah time there's a lot more festivity than Purim time. There's a lot more festivity than Chanukah time. Yes, Chanukah is 8 days long, but it's 8 days with a sufganiya at night, a little candle ceremony, and we're back to doing what we do. There's no idea of sitting down with meals. There's no idea of getting drunk. What about giving presents, mishloach manot, giving charity to the poor people, reading a Megillah? Does anyone know that there was, and there is, I actually have a copy if anyone's interested. It's a very interesting read. There is actually a Megillat Antiochus. Antiochus, the king of Yavan, the king of Greek. There's also a Megillah that was written on the story of Chanukah. It's a very, very interesting. It was written in a in not a regular Hebrew. It was more of this Greek, Aramaic, Hebrew, which is not so easy to understand, and it's been translated. However, it did not make itself into one of the main books of our Tanakh, so it doesn't have the same weight as the other ones. But it's a very, very interesting, obviously, read and learning piece that there's a lot to learn from. Anyways, why don't we read it? Why don't we do the things that we do on Chanukah during the same way that we do it on Purim? So, to this, the Zera Shimshon answers, and it's a very famous answer, and the Zera Shimshon himself says it, that on Purim, what did Haman want to do? He wanted to physically eradicate Jews from the face of this earth. Lo alenu v'lo alechem will compare it to Hitler. Hitler wanted Jew. I don't care if you're affiliated. I don't care if you're not affiliated. I don't care if you're Jewish from one part, one half, one quarter. I don't care what it is. Chas v'shalom, he wanted to completely annihilate Jews physically. Which, to that, when we won, we celebrate physically. We celebrate with meals. We celebrate with giving gifts. We celebrate with having good time, with party, with singing. Chanukah was different. The Greeks wanted the Jews to live. They wanted Jews as taxpayers. They wanted Jews as professionals, as businessmen, as people just like everyone else. But they wanted them to be Greek. They wanted to assimilate them. And that we would say the difference is like the Holocaust versus the silent Holocaust. And that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted to be, as we said, a little more politically correct. To that, when we overcame that, that was a spiritual victory. Spiritual victory, you know what we do? We sing praise and thanks to God. And that's what these days are. These are Yemei Halel v'Hodaya. These are days of praise and thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thank God that the inevitable didn't happen. That our destruction, that our assimilation did not take place. And that's why there's a difference in observance, the Zera Shimshon says, between the way and the halachot, and the festivities and the celebration between Purim and Chanukah. Now, which is greater? Well, each has a plus and a minus. If we would have physically all been gone, well, there would have been nothing left. But on the other hand, I hate to say this, but what's a Jew who isn't acting like a Jew? What would have been better? No one can say. But when there's potential that's being lost versus potential that was taken away against their will, that's something that has to be weighed out. And that's why Chanukah is a very special holiday that we give full 8 days attention to this holiday. He explained something else very interesting, and this we all know, that we light the candles, and we always light them facing outwards, as we said, to publicize the miracle. Ideally, if anyone opens up the halachic works, all of the books on halacha, and even the Talmud says, the ideal place to light your candles are either by the gate of your walkway to your house or by the front door. Whether it's on the inside or the outside, it's not now to discuss. But always by the door. Zera Shimshon says, why by the door? Listen to this fascinating answer. This is the first time I ever heard this concept. And it makes sense, but the way he puts it is so beautifully. He says, what would the Greeks do? Well, we know when the Greeks would come and there were either families or friends or little schools of children learning Torah, they would quickly hide their books and pull out dreidels. But he says further, he says, what would they do? They would all of a sudden barge into houses and see, are you keeping Shabbat? Are you calculating your calendar? Are you circumcising your children? Are you learning Torah? Are you fulfilling the commandments of your God? Where would they come in from? They'd barge in through the front door. What do we do, he says? Right by the front door. Whether it's on the inside or the outside, by the gate, wherever it is, we put our sign of victory, which is our menorah, and we light it with pride. With pride for this miraculous victory that God obviously brought about. I personally found that to be tremendous. And when I myself lit my menorah, I had in mind that is amazing. That confidence that we have that God made this miracle for us, that we're able to put it in the same spot where the Greeks used to come in and used to berate us and used to kill us and used to stop us from doing what we have to do. Midah keneged midah. Now we're able to, and that's the whole point of Chanukah. And the Zera Shimshon says, we're able to stand up and do as we wish. Chanukah is the holiday of freedom. Freedom, especially for us living in America, resonates very well. To us, we appreciate what it means to have free will, freedom of speech, free choice. Unfortunately, worldwide, that's not accepted. This concept of freedom, we should know, is a Jewish concept. It's a concept we stand by. It's a concept which promotes healthy relationships. It promotes confidence, innovation, having the concept of being equal and open to all. Freedom is this holiday. This is the holiday of freedom. And we learn it from the freedom of spiritual choice. Any religion can choose as they want to do, as long as they're not hurting, killing, imposing it on others. We make it very clear, the Jewish religion is not a religion which imposes its religion on others. We do impose it on other Jews, because we know that's for their better, and that's for their own good. We don't ever, God forbid, hurt others or kill others in our observance of the Torah and God's will. We believe in freedom. And this is what it means to light the menorah, in the dark. I mentioned this morning I was midday, I was invited to City Hall with our mayor to light the menorah. Once a year, Chanukah time, lights the menorah. And they asked me to say a brief word. And I said a very simple concept. And this is something that maybe we have not all thought about. And that is, if we look at the time of the year that we light our menorah, the Chanukah candles, it's always at the time of the year when the night is longest. In the summertime, the night is short and the day is long. Now, whether we feel it or not, I think here in Florida we feel it. Those of our friends who are still in North America, you have a long winter ahead of you. But to us here in Florida, I think this is dead winter for us. It might be this cold for another week or two, and then we're good. But this is really dead winter in the fact that it's the longest nights of the year. What does a long night resemble? Unfortunately, it resembles darkness. A long darkness, a hard darkness. God instituted in His divine wisdom, even though this is not a Torah observance. Chanukah is obviously rabbinical. It was after the Torah was given. But He made sure to institute that it would fall out, the miracle would fall out to be during the time of the year when the nights are longest, when we're most susceptible to the longest and the deepest darkness, and that we're able to illuminate it with our outlook on life, with our feeling of freedom and invigoration and inspiration to connect to our Creator and foster that relationship that He loves with us so much. That's a lot about what Chanukah is about. I won't say that's what all of Chanukah is about, but these are main concepts that when we light our menorah, when we play dreidels, when we eat that sufganiyah, don't think about, is it going to burn something? How many calories am I getting on? Can I burn them off? Well, forget about that for a second.
8 days.
Enjoy. 8 days, it's fine. It take 8 months to run it off, but it's okay. 8 days, enjoy the spiritual aspects, and enjoy what it means and what it feels like to be free, because that's a gift that we have. It's a gift that we believe in. I want to share a Chanukah story, and it's actually from the book. If anyone read the English book, it was brought in it. It's a very, very special story, a story about a miracle. And the story is briefly, I'm going to go through it quickly because it's a long story, but I'll go through it quickly. The story is about a rabbi who obviously lived in Israel, because in Israel, as we explained, many light their menorah outside. Now, if you leave it outside, it's probably going to blow out from the wind. So what do? Any of us who've spent Chanukah in Israel, they sell these boxes. They're either fully glass, partly glass, and then you put the menorah inside, and then you light it. Now, at the end of one Chanukah, this rabbi, when he came to take down his box, the glass fell and broke. So a thought ran through his mind, well, I'll fix it next year. A couple days before Chanukah next year, I'll fix it. And then a second thought ran through his mind, like, why procrastinate? Let me get it fixed now, just in case I might be busy and forget about it next year. Let me take care of it now. So he called his son over, and he told his son, go, take this to the glassmaker and have him fix it. Very good. His son takes it, goes to the glassmaker, and the teller was not there. So he let himself in, and he went to speak to the old boss, the boss. He starts speaking to the boss. He tells him why his father sent him. And the elderly man was fascinated how the rabbi, this young boy's father, didn't want to procrastinate. It's something so easy. How many times do we just say we'll do it later? We'll do it when we need it. No. 12 months before he needs it, he's actually taking care of it. So he engaged him in a conversation and more of a personal story. And he asked him, did you ever hear of the 6-Day War? So now the child, obviously saying yes, but he didn't know too much about it. He said, yeah, of course I heard about it. The 6-Day War, by the way, happened June 5th, 1967 till June 10th. It was only 6 days. It was very hard, yet, as we're soon going to see, as many of us obviously know, miraculous 6 days. And the man goes on to say that the entire war from beginning to end was a miracle. And he's telling the boy the story. That first the Egyptians, they waged war. They declared war with the state of Israel. And then in a number of only 7 minutes did the Israeli Air Force take off and blow up hundreds and hundreds of Soviet brand new fighter jets that were delivered to Egypt, to Chas v'Shalom, to destroy the land of Israel. Within 7 minutes, all of it was goodbye. Next, and as he brings down, King Hussein, king of Jordan, made the greatest political, tactical mistake of his life, and he also declared war against Israel. And because of that, he actually lost Jerusalem and the Old City and the Kotel the way we have it today. So again, more miracles, gone with that. Then, along this, we're talking 6 days. Then, how do we say? Syria also jumps on the bandwagon. They're not too smart. They didn't see that they were already losing. And then what do? The Jewish people, obviously, the state of Israel takes over the Golan Heights. And in 6 days, we did more conquering and more headway than months or maybe even years. And all of that was because it was miracle after miracle. Now listen to this story. This story is beautiful. This man, this elderly man that was in this glass store, was saying how he was an intelligent officer. And he said the months following such a war, it was only a 6-day war, but it was months of recuperation. Why? Because all of the prisoners that they took in, they had to screen them, interrogate, investigate, try to see any information they could take before they let them go. And it was very hard to crack, as we all know, any type of officer or militant from the opposite side. However, with psychological games and any type of convincing, it's able to be done. Yet, he says there was one Egyptian officer which was impossible to crack. No physical torture could crack him. No mental torture. No setup of a conversation. He was like a stone. He didn't blink an eye. There was no way to get anything out of him, and it was so obvious that he had so much information inside him. Couple months went by, and the head of the intelligence came up with a bright idea. They came over to this man, who's now the glassmaker, and they told him, you now are going to be on a mission. You're going to take this Egyptian officer on a tour during Chanukah, beautiful festivity, in Tel Aviv. You're going to take him around to the bakeries. You're going to take him at night when it's all lit up. You're going to take him around shopping. You're going to let him see what Israel's all about, and maybe he'll get close to you and he might open up. So automatically he said, I disagree with the idea. I don't think it's a good idea. Yet against his will, he had to do as the higher authorities told him to do. He goes, he's walking. To make a long story short, the guy did not crack. The guy was like a stone. He was walking. It was obvious that he was observing the surrounding, but he was not opening up. It wasn't promoting any conversation. So the Jewish officer, obviously the glassmaker, many years forward, he said, you know what I'm going to do? Instead of turning this into a shopping and sightseeing experience, I'm going to take him to the Grand Synagogue of Tel Aviv to witness the lighting of the first candle of Chanukah. Let's see how he's not moved by that. He goes, he walks in, he sees how he's looking all around, and he's really enjoying, but yet staying very reserved. He gets into this massive synagogue full of people, and the Chazan makes the first 3 blessings, as the first night it was, lights the candles, and then after, he starts singing Ma'oz Tzur. It's the song that we all know. And the Jewish officer is singing along with him. Ma'oz Tzur with the whole congregation. All of a sudden, he looks at his Egyptian officer, who is normally a dark-skinned man, stone, didn't move. All of a sudden, he gets pale and he turns white like a ghost. As if he just saw a ghost, almost. And he starts sweating. And he looks at him and he didn't know what to do. And before he even had the moment to either call for help or to go hold him, the man faints. And the Jewish officer couldn't help but notice that while the man was fainting, he was murmuring or mouthing Ma'oz Tzur, the song. And the guy passed out. They revived him, they brought him back. It took the intelligence agency some time, but they figured out that this boy was actually born to Jewish parents, Egyptian Jews. And they died in an accident in Egypt. And as the rule is, as the law is in all Muslim countries, that any child that's up for adoption is now claimed to be Muslim and is educated as a Muslim. And this Jewish boy was raised in a Muslim orphanage. He was a very bright boy. He raised the ranks, became an officer, secret agent, and he ended up as a captive in Israel. Obviously, after many talks and a lot of psychology, he's today living, I don't know if he's still alive or not, but living as a full-fledged Jew in Israel. Never in his life went back to Cairo. All from what he remembered as a child. He lived his whole life thinking he was not a Jew. Convinced he was a Muslim. Convinced he was an Egyptian. And from that decision that the Jewish officer brought him to see the candlelighting in the Grand Synagogue of Tel Aviv, rehashed psychologically and subconsciously his memory, lighting candles with his grandparents as a little child. We sometimes take for granted what it means to sing a song with our children, what it means to do or fulfill any mitzvot or our traditions and our customs with our children. The kiddush that we do every Shabbat, Friday night, the songs that we sing, Chanukah. Chanukah's hard. Meaning, we're allowed to do anything. We could listen to music, we could go shopping, we could go watch movies, we can do anything, we could cook. It's not like Shabbat. But what will it hurt to sing another song? What will it hurt to sit down and play a little bit of dreidel with your children in front of the Chanukah candles, with your children, with your grandchildren? What will it hurt to share a miracle with your family? Maybe to go around and say, here's my miracle of the day or of the week or of the year. What's yours? How much does that take? What better things could we do with our time? The answer is we can't do anything better. We see from this true story that certain things are ingrained in us and they cannot be taken away. And this is all literally a Chanukah miracle. We're going to move on to this week's parasha. Can I bother you for water, please? Benny, thanks. This week's parasha is Parashat Miketz. And it's coming to the end of the first book of our Torah, the book of Genesis. And just to remind ourselves, Joseph was kidnapped by his brothers and sold at the age of 17. He comes at the age of 17 to Egypt, and he becomes successful in his trade as being a slave. He becomes the head of the slaves. And not even a year later, or just a year, thank you. Everyone had part of the mitzvah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה bidbaro. Amen. At the age of 18, he is thrown into jail for a crime that he never committed. Yet obviously it was the will of God, so he took it. We don't see that he ever complained until the end. We'll speak about that in a moment. But he never complained being thrown to jail. He accepted that as the will of God. He's there for 10 years. He's also raising in the ranks in jail. He's the head of the jail. And then there's these two interesting fellows that get thrown into jail. The butler and the baker. And they have their dreams, as we know. He interprets them through the inspiration of the divinity of God, obviously. And on Zera Mashkin's, the butler's way out, he says, hey, when you speak to your Paro, tell him about me. Don't forget. And to that, our commentaries, the Midrash learns that he was punished and he has stayed an extra 2 years. So Joseph now is in jail for a total of 12 years. And then we come to the beginning of this week's parasha, where Paro has his series of dreams. And the first dream Paro has is about these 7 fat cows that emerge from the Nile River. They come out looking healthy, stocky, beautiful cows. And after them, these 7 rigid, malnourished, horrible, evil-looking cows, and they devour the 7 healthy ones, and they don't even look like they even ate anything. We don't see any difference on them. And he gets up and he's frightened. Okay. His second dream was a dream of a similar type of dream. It was a stalk of wheat with 7 kernels, a nice and healthy one. And again, a horrible looking one with 7 horrible wilted kernels, eating the healthy one as if nothing. There was archaeology done in Egypt, and they said that they found the bones of 7 cows. And they wanted to know, which cows were they? Were they the cows of the 7 healthy, the bone of the 7 healthy cows, or the 7 malnourished, evil cows? And what was the answer?
Evil ones.
What was the answer?
Oh, the skinny one. No.
The evil was a dream.
It was only a dream. If you got it, good. If not, no. If you enjoy riddles, chazak.
Oh my God, that was a good one.
Seriously speaking, I know it's not normal to hear a joke from me, but I'll give you a joke once in a while. It's Chanukah, Zman Simchatenu.
We didn't know you could joke.
So finally, Zera Mashkin remembers. He says, whoa, I remember there was this Jew boy that was in the jail with us, and he knows, the slave, that he knows how to interpret dreams. He was true. He was 2 for 2. He was true on my dream, and he was true on the baker's dream. You should really consider bringing him in. And so he was. And Joseph was the age, if anyone was keeping up with the numbers, he was 30 years old when he stood in front of Paro. Right? 17, 18 he was in jail, plus 10, plus 2, the age of 30. He was 30, standing in front of the most powerful man in the world at the time. And he interpreted his dreams. And we're going to analyze, why was Paro happy and accepting the interpretation that Joseph gave over all of the advisors, philosophers, and wise men? Why specifically this 30-year-old prisoner who lived almost half of his life in jail, why did he like his interpretation better? Before we get to that, there's a verse that the Zera Shimshon analyzes, and he says, if we look at the second dream, the way the verse talks about it is very peculiar. First it says that he saw the stalk of wheat with the kernels on it. And he sees that the deficient one eats the healthy one. And then it says he gets up, vaikatz. He wakes up, vaikatz paro v'ine halom. He gets up and there's a dream. The next pasuk says, vayiba boker v'atipayim rucho. The next morning, he's distraught. He's bothered with the dream. So he asks 3 questions on this pasuk. If you get them good, if not, it's fine. At least you'll appreciate the answer. He asks, why was he only disturbed the next morning? He should have been disturbed right away. If anyone has ever waken up in the middle of the night and had a bad dream, it's very hard to go back to sleep right away. People lose nights of sleep over bad dreams. How is it that it says vaikatz. He woke up in a startle from the dream. And then next morning, he was bothered about it. He says that was a little weird. The second thing that he says, question that he asks the Zera Shimshon is, what does it mean that he woke up? He had the dream, and fine. I understand by the first dream, he had to wake up, realize it was a dream, go back to sleep. But at the end of the second dream, why did he need to wake up before the morning or at the morning? He says it's a very choppy language what's going on. And finally he says, what does it say? V'hinei chalom, and this was a dream. We know it's a dream. Thank you very much. He answers all 3 of these questions, which might seem a little intricate if you're not looking at the verse itself. Excuse me. With the Talmud that tells us 3 signs that a dream is true. Okay, listen, get ready. First sign is that it is repetitive. It's not a one-time dream. You've dreamt this dream before, and you're dreaming it over and over and over. That's the first thing. Talmud, Masechet Berachot, page 55. Okay? The next is, it has to be a dream that was dreamt in the morning. Meaning, obviously not a daydream, but a dream that was dreamt towards the end of the night, towards before one gets up. The third thing is, and if you had any hopes of you dreaming many times in the morning about winning the lottery, well, this is going to disprove that. It has to be a dream about someone else. So that ruined that for you. So, listen to, based on that concept, the way, in a genius way, the way the Zera Shimshon answers these questions, this series of questions. He says that Paro woke up after the second dream. Vaikatz Paro. Why? He realized he was dreaming the same dream. Exactly like Joseph says, that the dream of the 7 cows and the other 7 is the exact same dream as the stocks. So he woke up and he's like, whoa, something's going on. First sign, I'm dreaming it over and over. Okay, that's why it says, V'hinei chalom. It must be a real dream. Okay, so that answered 2 of his questions already. So now why does it say, Vayhi baboker vatipayim rucho? That was his other question. Well, only in the morning he was distraught? Yes, because he realized he dreamt that dream in the morning, and now he was bothered and he was distraught because he said, wow, there's already 2 signs that this dream, this horrible and frightening dream that I'm dreaming, is true. Because it's repeating itself, and it was dreamt in the morning. So why didn't he accept the interpretations of the other wise men that he had? What would they say? They would come and say, oh, Paro, you will have 7 beautiful daughters, and they will all die, and you'll have to bury all 7 of them. That's the 7 cows, and then the 7 that eat them. Or they said all types of things that will happen to him. You will have 7 kingdoms, you will have 7 of this, and you will have it, and you will lose it. And he was keeping on telling himself, that can't be the interpretation, because it's about himself. Paro was saying that was about me. It needs to be about someone or something else. Then when Joseph came, if you read the Psukim, when you read this week's Torah portion, It wasn't like Paro said, let me think about it. Let me digest what you're saying. As soon as Joseph said it, he said, you're the one. You're the genius. You have the answer. And he took him in no time from him being overwhelmed with frantic and sadness and depression because of these dreams to saying, Joseph, you used the right interpretation. And Joseph, now you are going to be the genius that takes care of taking us out of this coming issue. What did Joseph come and do? He said, this is not your problem. There's going to be a famine to the world. It's to others. A king never goes hungry. Right? It's a fact. It was a problem for everyone else. So he was dreaming a dream repetitively. He was dreaming it in the morning. And then finally Joseph came in and said, you know what? It's not about you. It's about others. And therefore, Paro accepted it. That's what made Joseph the 30-year-old slave jail boy. I'm just using that in that term, the way Paro looked at him. His interpretation greater than the rest. Because he said something true, and Paro knew it. Paro was no dummy. Paro was smarter than anybody, any of us have ever met by far. He was a super genius. He was well educated. He knew everything and anything, and the only thing he didn't know was the Hebrew language. And that was Joseph and his pact. That Joseph knew 71 languages and Paro only knew 70. And that was their little secret. But Paro was a super smart man. And that's why he accepted and he appreciated Joseph's interpretation. I want to move on to the last part of the Zera Shimshon that we're going to speak about tonight. It's going to be quick, so we'll wrap it up, Ezrat Hashem. And that is towards the end of the parasha. So Joseph's brothers come. He recognizes them, they don't recognize him. He gives them and sells them food. But on their way out, he says, I want to educate them. I want to rebuke them for what they've done to me. And he takes his goblet and he puts it in Benjamin's sack. And then he sends them away and he sends his messengers after to get him. The Zera Shimshon analyzes, what did Joseph tell his messengers to tell his brothers? He says as follows. They left. Then he told them, run after. And when you get to them, v'amarta lahem, lama shilamtem ra'a tachat tova. Why did you pay back evil for good? When someone does you good, pay them back with good. Why are you paying back someone who did good to you by paying them back with something evil? The Zera Shimshon asks, why is he saying that? Why couldn't he just tell his messenger, who didn't even know the whole story, to say, hey, why did you steal the cup? Why did you steal that goblet? Why did he tell him in this interesting way, why are you paying back something bad for when good was done to you? And the messenger thought, well, yeah, you were hosted by the viceroy, you were fed, you were sold food and sold ingredients and everything you needed. Why are you stealing when you were given? But really, the Zera Shimshon says, Yosef was saying something so much deeper. He was telling them, the whole reason why you kidnapped me and sold me was because of jealousy. Jealousy because you saw the way our father acted towards me. But you're wrong for looking at it that way. You know why? Because our mothers, Rachel and Leah, Yosef was saying, my mother Rachel, she was not jealous towards your mother, Leah. She, at the last moment, gave the secret signs to Leah, her sister, so Yaacov would think that she was really Rachel, in order not to embarrass her. She was the opposite of jealous. She went above and beyond to maintain the self-worth and self-respect of her sister Leah. And you're paying back that beautiful and noble, unjealous act with jealousy? And that's what he says. Lama shilamtim ra'a. Why are you paying me back with jealousy? Tachat tova, based on what my mother did for your mother. It was so much deeper than what the words are just saying. And to that we always have to remember the importance of gratitude. How disgusting is it when someone does something good for you and you spit back in their face, and you slap them across the face, or you insult them, avoid them, wrong them? It's disgusting. It's repulsive. It's against the will of God, put it that way. It's against common sense. If someone does something good to you, act graciously and with gratitude back. Not the opposite. And that's what Yosef's brothers overlooked. The brothers overlooked that really Rachel was opposite of jealous. And they should have paid him back and expressed their gratitude even for what the mother did to their mother, instead of acting jealous and horrible with them. That's a very strong lesson to all of us. It's a strong lesson that we have to know, to go out of our way to be grateful. Nowadays, I would say sending a text is already not so special. A phone call is worth a lot. A letter is worth more. A handwritten letter. Okay? A visit doesn't have to be things that cost money. Even if someone did something which is worth a lot of time and effort and money for you, it's not the amount, it's the quality. It's the quality of the type of gratitude that you display. And this is all the more important when it comes to our spouses. From husbands to wives and wives to husbands. All day, a husband is working in order to provide a livelihood for his wife and children. And all day, a wife is spending in order to provide for the comfort and the emotional and mental balance and stability and the warm and perfect home that she is able to put together for her husband and for her children. It's all day each are working for each other. Yet sometimes how do we repay all of that work? With sour gratitude. Being an ungrate. Coming with a sour face. Screaming. Complaining. Looking at what they didn't do. Looking what he didn't bring home. Looking what she didn't prepare. It's just as bad, if not worse. Gratitude starts at home. Gratitude starts with the people that you interact with all the time. It's very nice to call up the rabbi and say, Rabbi, thank you for this, thank you for that. Hang up and start screaming at your wife. What's that worth? Don't call me. Don't say thank you to me. Pretend I'm on the phone and speak to her and say thank you, honey, thank you, honey. It's worth a lot more. To our children, be grateful for the small and petty things. What do we expect of our children, depending on their ages? Very little. But when they do, be grateful. Make a big to-do. Because even for you, when they bring you something to eat or drink, or they bring you your slippers, or they come on time, or as they get older, whatever they do, if they show up for Friday night dinner, to you think it's an obvious. No, my child brings me my slippers Friday night. My child shows up to dinner Friday night. My child makes his bed when he wakes up. Whatever it is. No. If you're grateful, you will promote them to continue to want to do it. If you are grateful to your children, you will teach them to be grateful individuals. And then you're setting them up for success. Because then when they have real relationships that continue, new relationships in their lives, with friends, and with their spouse eventually, they will know how to express it. I can guarantee you, and I'll end off with this, because I can speak a long time on this, but I'll end off with this. I guarantee that most people aren't evil and don't want to hold back the expression of gratitude. Just unfortunately, too many people don't know how to express it. They don't know how to either physically come and bring themselves to verbalize it, or it doesn't even cross their mind that that's the way to do it. But deep down inside, they obviously do feel it. When you do good to somebody, they feel it. It's a good feeling. It's a comforting feeling. It's a warm feeling. No one can disagree with that. If you give something, if you serve your husband something, if you serve your wife something, as much as you're hating each other at that moment, it breaks the barriers. As soon as you come and you say sorry, and then you say thank you, everything changes. So on the opposite side, on the side that's always doing for the other, and you're waiting for that action of gratitude, or that recognition, have hope and know that it's not being gone and lost to waste. Rather, maybe you need to lead by example and teach the other how to thank, how to be, and to express their gratitude. Don't ever lose hope and say, I'm doing so much for the child, for my spouse, for my friend, for my parent, and you never see a thanks, and you never see a gratitude. Never give up. Know that they have it inside, yet unfortunately they either don't know or they were never taught how to express it. And the only way to have them do that is by teaching them how to. If you come with a textbook and you say, when I do such and such, this is what you're supposed to answer, it's not going to work. When I bring you a hot muffin with the favorite coffee that you like, you say thank you and I'll do the same for you, it's not going to work. You have to lead by example. And the best is with our children. When our children do something, be grateful. Your spouse will see it. When the grandchildren do something, your spouse will see it when you act and you thanks and you praise them for it. Make it real, make it a part of you. If you live a life with gratitude, and this is obviously between fellow to fellow, there's a whole other element between us to God, and that's sometimes easier and sometimes harder. But start with our relationships here. Lavan tried to trick Yaacov, and Lavan came and said, oh, Yaacov, it's because of God, you and God, that I'm rich. Lavan said, I'm reading through your lies. You cannot say it's because of God. He came and said it's because of God. You cannot say it's because of God that you're rich. First, ben adam lachavero. First realize that it was me that did it for you, and then you could go and thank God. Don't beat around the bush. First, at least in the realm of gratitude, strengthen the relationships we have with others here in this world, and then obviously we can strengthen it with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. May we all be blessed in the merit of Rav Shimshon Chaim Nachmani, the Zera Shimshon. Let his merit and his segula, especially during the holiday of Segulot, be upon us, as well as in the merit of Misoda Bad Zohara. I remembered, Shokron, that tonight is the night of her passing, that her neshama should have an aliyah. And I'll just mention one last thing. The Zera Shimshon says those who study his book will be sure to have children that follow in the path of Torah and mitzvot. According to the Kabbalah, the holiday of Chanukah is a time of the year to pray for children. Those who don't have children, or those who would like more children, it's the time of the year to pray specifically for healthy, successful children. And specifically on the 8th day. The 8th day, Zot Chanukah, the 8th candle, at its completion, at its greatest radiance and illumination, it is the most powerful day to pray for healthy and successful children. So all those who would like more children, or grandchildren, or anything, following the class we have Women's Tehillim.